The following program is brought to you in part by the film Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.
Welcome to another Leon Charney report, and we are talking to you once again from Israel, this time Caesarea, Israel, named after little Caesar, who I guess lost because the state of Israel is standing. And we're here at a conference for economic, whatever it is, it's irrelevant to the show, but we bumped into Abu Vilan. If you remember, about 2-3 years ago, he was interviewed with us, and he's he's a war hero in this country, a very strong military career. But interestingly enough, he's with the Meretz party, which is the party that looks to do peace with the Palestinians. It's obviously a tough time for the Meretz party, and it's obviously a tough time for those who believe that Yasser Arafat was a partner. So we're going to ask him a few questions and contrast that to what he told us a couple of years ago. Abu, well, that's your nickname, so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. What are you feeling these days? Obviously, the whole peace process is stalled. Arafat is running a terrorist campaign against your people, and it seems to me that the country is really upset. And you, as a former military guy, probably never in your wildest dreams would believe that Ariel Sharon would be your prime minister.
Not at all. On the one hand, I'm very frustrated because we believed that in Camp David summit last year, and later on, we suggested Arafat almost everything, and he refused, and he decided to start shooting rather than to continue the negotiation. And I remind you, I was the campaign manager of Mr. Barak in the last election, and we lost the election, and Ariel Sharon became the prime minister. But in this very moment, look, everything has changed. It's true that Arafat refused to all our suggestions, but it's true also that till this very moment, Ariel Sharon didn't start different policy that Mr. Barak has led. So,
but why did the Barak? Why did it fail? I mean, were you guys prepared? One of the things that we say on this show is that the United States State Department did not effectively secure or understand the Arab capitals of the other Arab countries, what their position would be, especially on Jerusalem, because that seemed to be the holiest of holiest.
It's all true. Look, we suggest a deal that was based upon 4 main points. The first point was that we were ready to give almost 97% of the territories that we conquered in a 6-day war. The second point, that we suggested a solution in Jerusalem. The third point was that we asked them to understand that our two main demands, number 3, is the right. There is no way that they can fulfill the right of return.
Was that a surprise to you, by the way? That issue just came up. It was never light. It was never a lightning issue.
It was a surprise because, you know, in so many years that we discussed this issue with them, they gave us the feeling, not the feeling, the explanation that will come a day and we can close the deal. It's well known for them that there's no way that they can have the right of return because they will have their own independent state, and we have a Jewish independent state. So what kind of right of return they want to their independent state?
Right, so key issue, and you know, and you see Arafat, or you saw him all the time. Why did he bring that issue up?
I think, in my opinion, that after we suggested such a deal, he decided that he preferred to achieve more, and he wanted some more things. And in my opinion, Arafat maybe is very good in tactics, but as a leader from the strategic point of view, is a disaster. If you can check all his history, in 1970 he was thrown from Jordan. In 1982 he was thrown from Lebanon. In 1991 he had this deal with Saddam Hussein, and we brought him back here to the area by the Oslo Accord. So Arafat did a disaster, a terrible mistake in my opinion. But I'll tell you something. The main point is, okay, in the end of the day, after we'll finish to fight each other, and in this very moment they have more than 600 victims, we have more than 100. And the number, I'm really scared that continue. But in the end of the day, we have to find a solution. And I don't believe there will be any Israeli leader, even we, Meretz, if we are tomorrow in the Prime Minister office, we cannot suggest more that they were suggested by Barak. So maybe, I believe that after 100 years of struggling, we came to the last mile. I don't know how much time it will take this last mile, but everything is clear. Now, I'll tell you another thing. Arafat thought about two main issues. The first one was that he thought that here can happen the Lebanese model. What is the Lebanese model? That 500 Hezbollah soldiers, according to his opinion, fought and achieved all South Lebanon for the Lebanese, so maybe the system will work here in the territories. This was first terrible mistake. The second one, that he believed that the Kosovo model can work here, meaning that if he will bring the international community here into the conflict, he can achieve more than Barak was ready to suggest to him. So in this very moment, after 9 months of fighting, the two main issues hadn't been fulfilled, meaning that even we, the left, and we think, look, it's something very interesting happening in Israel. Sharon has now support of 70% of the people.
But that's in the Labour Party.
No, furthermore, 65% of the Israeli public tell him that we want to continue the peace process, we want to continue the negotiation, we are ready to freeze the settlement. The meaning is that after all, when you ask people, okay, what kind of solution can be achieved in the Middle East, they are giving our approach, not your own approach, but they prefer in this very moment that unity government by all sides will lead our policy, because I think that maybe we were wrong, or we are not wrong in my opinion, but we suggested him and he refused. But the right-wing extremists, their model don't work at all. So the only solution, in my opinion now, is that we have to play on time and to wait till the Palestinians understand that by force it cannot work, that from their point of view, there is no way that they can break Israeli society, and the only political channel which is open for them is the negotiation table. Otherwise, they cannot achieve. Look, we are, the left, totally against right of return. We support from the early 70s in their full right for independent state, but not instead of State of Israel, but beside the State of Israel.
All right, you have seen Arafat many times, right? Mm-hmm. When's the last time you saw him?
About 6 weeks ago.
And what did you say to him?
I told him, Mr. Chairman, you have to understand something. Every terrorist attack that is leading or that you're responsible for, bring all of us back to square number one.
Right.
Because even we, the left, then instead to talk with you, we'll continue fighting you.
Do you believe he controls the terrorism?
Of course he can.
Okay. My next question is, the people surrounding him, and you've met them all, Abu Allah and Abu Mazen, are they of the same ilk, the same temperament, the same strategy as Arafat?
No, I think, that he is a one-man show, meaning that he is kind of a leadership. Nobody of them knows exactly what the big boss really wants. This is number one. Number two, he's still working with the old guys that started the PLO in the late 50s, the early 60s. You mentioned Abu Mazen, Abu Allah, a few others, Farouk Kadumi. So let's say in the world today, which kind of a country have their real Politburo? Maybe in Cuba, maybe in North Korea, in China. And you have it in Syria, and you have it in the PLO, meaning that all the real leaders of the PLO are in their 70s now. The other generation, which is really more pragmatic and understand Israel, understand the situation, with them it's easier. And I believe that, as I said all the time, that in the future we can find a solution. But in this very moment, Arafat, to my very sorrow, decided to go back to square number one and to become the terrorist leader as he were in the 60s or in the early 70s, And in my opinion, till they will not change the real policy, it will be very difficult. But what we have to do, and this may I remind you very important, that we will do our terrible mistake if we play to his hands, meaning he wants to bring us in. He wants that we will kick him and we will push him and we will attack them. Then can he achieve political achievement by the intervention of the international community?
Right.
And we have to do to our best to play such game and to start a strategy that we will defend our real interests and will not play to his hands.
Well, Sharon did it after Dolphinarium. He restrained himself. The question is, he has a right wing that is really upset. The settlers are getting killed every day. He's facing, right-wing people like Gandhi, Lieberman, who are ready to move out of his government. Would you go into his government, Meretz?
No, there's no way that we will get in because we're totally opposition to his views, but until this very moment, we said all the time, if Sharon will continue to take the exact direction they're taking now, we will support him by no way, but by all means, and we'll support him in the Knesset. But I think that the interesting dilemma of Mr. Sharon in these very days is this. On the one hand, as you mentioned, if he wants to continue to be the old Sharon, with the support of the right-wing extremists. So he knows it quite well that this story was finished 18 years ago after the Lebanese experience, not so good from his political point of view. On the other hand, he can be the new Sharon that going with Mr. Peres and with Labour and to be more moderate person, and then maybe he can achieve some political achievement that put him into history that a real Israeli new leader. So I don't know who is the real Sharon in this very moment. If Sharon will take I will not say you the right or left, but let's say the right direction, so we'll support him. If he will come back the old Sharon, which is totally supporting by right-wing extremists, so we will be a real opposition to him. It all depends in Sharon's strategy, which I must admit, in this very moment, he's doing quite a good job.
So basically the Meretz party, which is the left-wing party, says as long as Israel restrains from retaliation, because you believe that plays into Arafat's hand, and that catapults him to the international community, which you don't want him to have, because he's always looking to have the international community intervene. That's exactly what he's trying to do. So your policy is, if there is restraint, ultimately that will lead to negotiation?
It's more than 60% of Israeli public believes that this is our right strategy.
Right.
And I want to tell you another point. You know, I came from a kibbutz that was totally destroyed by the Egyptian armed forces in the independence war of Israel. But this was the point where the Egyptian armed forces were stopped in the way towards Tel Aviv. We lost almost 40 people, members of kibbutz and soldiers, and after 6 months, all the kibbutz was totally destroyed. Just in one day, we were bombed from the air and from the artillery. More than 3,000 bombs has fallen just in one day. So when I compare my father's experience, who was the commander of this place, and with all the problems, the atmosphere and the situation today, it's totally different. It's totally different story. Israel is strong enough. We can continue, and we want to find a political solution. But from the military point of view, and from the military point of view, the situation, Israel is not in risk. We have problems. We have a problem with our mood. We don't know what will be the future, what kind of a hope. But from the military point of view, they cannot endanger us. We're too strong that they can endanger us in this situation.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high. To have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the backdoor channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. relive history, order backdoor channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at audible.com or on iTunes. Discover The Mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening, a book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD and Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Moleh Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs and Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
Hi, I'm Leon Charney, and this is the Leon Charney Report, and we're talking to you from the Knesset in Jerusalem, Israel, and we're talking with a really interesting MK, I was going to say MP, this is Knesset. His name is Michael Kleiner. He originally was with the Likud party, but he broke away, and he has his own party called the Herut party, which is originally the Likud party. He'll go into all that, but he is highly intelligent and considered a very right-winger. Now, right means he's correct, and the other means he's to the right side. That's what we discussed yesterday. And his idea of where Israel should be and is going is highly important because he represents a very strong faction of the population of the country. Michael, welcome to our show.
Shalom.
First time on our show. I'm surprised. We know each other quite a while.
So I hope it will not be the last.
I hope so too. Michael, you're considered a right-winger. Is that correct or incorrect?
No, first of all, I'm right. Against wrong. I'm not wrong.
Right.
But seriously, maybe in the past, people could say the opinions I expressed were extreme. Unfortunately, now they became consensus. Thanks to Yasser Arafat and his betrayal and his lies and his terror acts, I am becoming now very much in the center of the Israeli consensus.
So do you believe that Arafat will ever be a partner to make any kind of peace with Israel?
Not more than bin Laden or Saddam Hussein. Arafat was a terrorist, is a terrorist. In '93, he signed a letter to Yitzhak Rabin saying he is giving up violence. In return, we gave him land and some kind of sovereignty or self-rule, and we gave him permission to bring 40,000 terrorists into smaller Israel under the pretense that he will defend us. And then he betrayed us, and he is using violence. He came back to the way of terror, and like people don't speak with bin Laden or don't speak with Saddam Hussein or didn't speak with Adolf Hitler, so nobody should speak with Arafat. There will be no peace as long as Yasser Arafat is here. King Hussein learned it the hard way in the 70s and made tens of treaties with Arafat, which Arafat broke them all when he was in Jordan as a guest of King Hussein, and then he fought him and threw him away with all his people. It happened again in Lebanon. Until they got rid of Arafat, they didn't have one quiet moment, and we have to learn the lesson. Don't believe to the promises of Arafat, which he is breaking all the time, and we have to send him and his people back to Tunis, or maybe rather to Iraq, because I believe he suits Saddam Hussein.
All right, how would you handle the Palestinian people today? What should happen with them?
The Palestinian people...
Not the leadership, the people.
I know, in a way, Israelis have to feel guilt, because what we brought upon them in '93, after the Oslo agreements was a disaster, because they were economically much better off before 93, before we brought Arafat and made him their ruler and his terrorists from Tunis. They, from the point of view of civil rights, they have no civil rights. They suffer under his rule. After we get rid of Arafat, we have to create a new autonomy, a healthier autonomy for the Palestinian Arabs, in which we will control that there will be no incitement on television and radio, that in the school books they will learn about love and peace and not about being living bombs when they will be adults.
So you're totally against the Palestinian state?
I believe in the time being we have a Palestinian state, which is Jordan. It's not our business that they are not a democracy. When the British mandate gave on the land of Israel, declared that Palestine is the homeland for the Jewish people, 80% of it is Transjordan. The British later on established the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, which 70% of the population is Palestinians, and on the west side of the River Jordan is only 20% of the historic land of Israel or Palestine. I believe that Israel without sovereignty from the river to the sea cannot exist. We don't want to control other people. So if there are Palestinians or Palestinian cities, we don't want to control them. But giving them sovereignty means giving them an air force, giving them an army, giving them a permission to bring Iraqi forces or Syrian forces, and this will be suicide.
All right. Arik Sharon, years ago, before he was prime minister, or months ago, before he was prime minister, would he be talking the same way as you?
Before?
Before he was prime minister.
He was talking this way. Every reasonable Israeli who knows a little bit about strategy, who knows a little bit about the problems, who knows about the plans of the Palestinians will tell you the same.
All right. Do you believe Sharon is the same today, now that he is the prime minister?
We had a bad experience with Netanyahu. As you know, when he signed the Hebron agreements and the Y agreements, and he criticized very strongly the Oslo agreement. But Sharon
was also in the Y agreement.
And Sharon was on the Y agreement, and Sharon was a member of the government who made the Hebron agreement. If Oslo was so wrong, so Netanyahu and Sharon should have stopped it somehow. They didn't. Sharon today has a lot of credit from all sides of the Israeli public. He did one thing which is very important, a national unity government. Now, we will judge him according to his deeds. I, for example, was very disappointed for him accepting the Mitchell plan, because the Mitchell plan was, to my opinion, an immoral plan. Why? Because it is giving a reward for terrorism. Because when Arafat started the war, was the aggressor in October, after Barak made such big concessions, Arafat started a terror war against Israel. Now what is the Mitchell report suggesting? Arafat will stop his shooting and he will get, as a reward, stopping the settlements. He didn't have it before. So it is against, I guess, the moral attitude of United States against terror, to give a reward to terror, and in a way, saying both sides have faults in this war, and this is, from my point of view, comparing the aggressor to the one who is committing self-defense.
Tell me, you miss Ehud Barak as a prime minister?
Not at all. Not at all. I didn't vote for him.
I figured that out.
Even I was a vote that brought down Netanyahu after the Y agreement. But I didn't miss Barak. But on the other hand, Barak, in his very crazy concessions he made, correctly you say, he was the one tearing off the mask from the face of Yasser Arafat. And maybe it was, you know, like a messenger he was, because no sane national leader would have offered half of the concessions Barak offered. But with this, there was one thing positive, that he exposed Arafat, as you said.
All right, Michael, you're a sophisticated and highly intelligent person. You know that there's a world out there other than Israel and the Palestinians. The European community, they're moving around here in the Middle East trying to make some kind of, I guess, ceasefire or some kind of peace plan. I don't know what they're doing exactly. I did meet with a few of them. Can you, in Israel, withstand the external pressure of, I think everybody in this world thinks that there ultimately will be a Palestinian state. And I know your position is full autonomy. Do you think that's realistic in today's world?
We have to do the efforts, and we have to explain our point of view. Look, when today Arafat, in his propaganda, in his incitement, for example, tells the world that we are throwing candies which are poisoned. When Faisal Husseini died in his bed in Kuwait, he said that he was poisoned by the Israelis, together with Ahmad Tibi, who, by the way, you can see him is very healthy, in some demonstrations several days for it. This reminds the same stories that were told in Europe 100 years ago about Jewish people poisoning wells. And those people in Europe are the grandchildren of the people who were telling about us that we are poisoning wells. So maybe somehow today being anti-Israeli is a modern version of the poison those people got from their grandparents. Otherwise, I cannot see Europe buying those fairy tales of Yasser Arafat about uranium bombs that we are throwing, about poisoned candies, about poisoned gas, which killed Faisal Husseini. Look with Arafat. This is Europe, who is preaching democracy for the whole world, who in the time of the Cold War was fighting not the Soviet countries, but South American countries who were siding the West. And this same Europe is now helping or siding with democratic Arafat or democratic King Abdullah or democratic Mubarak or the big democrat Bashar al-Assad, against the only democracy in the Middle East, which is Israel.
So you got to be very disheartened, because when Bibi Netanyahu became prime minister, he said he would never shake the hand of Yasser Arafat. He breached that commitment, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Arik Sharon says he will not or has not, or I'm not sure.
Arik Sharon, by the way, didn't. Also in Y agreement, he didn't shake Arafat's hand.
He was pretty close. They may have not gone to bed together, but it was a romance.
This is his problem, by the way.
Right.
Nobody in Israel envies him.
How would you feel if Sharon would shake the hand of Arafat? Betrayed?
Yes, because you know, when Sharon went to the Supreme Court to allow his son Omri to meet Arafat, I thought to myself, would President Bush, go to the American Supreme Court to get permission for his son to meet Bin Laden or Saddam Hussein?
No. But do you think his son should have that ability? Omri, you think that Eliakim Rubinstein and the Supreme Court were incorrect in their decision?
I believe that you cannot on one hand say, as the Israeli government said, and as Sharon says, that Arafat is a liar, Arafat is a terrorist, Arafat is a murderer, and on the other hand to negotiate with him and say if he does this and this, so he is okay. This is what's, by the way, confusing the world. This makes our task to explain our position to Europe or the States much tougher, because this is a double standard. So Europe says if he is such a murderer and terrorist, so why do you meet him? By the way, when I was in American Congress, sometimes I had problems with American congressmen who said, look, we believe you are crazy, you shouldn't make such compromises. The Arabs started the war against you in '67 and the territories you got in self-defense, but we cannot be more extreme than your Israeli government, which was then the Barak government.
What is the role, what role do you see for the United States today in this conflict? Do you think they should intercede, or they should stay back and let the two parties sort of fight it out?
I believe the Bush attitude and the Chaney attitude is very positive. They understand that you cannot impose a solution for the time being. I hope they will not change those ways, and they give the frameworks, and they should be a mediator, and you know, also toward Europe, the objective judge of the facts, because you know the Arabs have the tendency to invent effects that don't exist, and the Europeans have tendency to believe the Arabs' fantasies.
Are you satisfied that there's a peace treaty between Egypt and Jordan today, or would you be against those peace treaties also?
No, I believe it was a correct thing at the time to make peace with Arab countries. I also are in favor with the peace with Syria. We want peace, and we believe peace is necessary, and every human being wants peace. But I'm very worried about what's going on in Egypt, using all the money she got from the Americans, or 80% of it, to building a very huge army. Egypt has no threat, neither from Sudan or Libya, would justify building such an army. And it worries me very much, not only the army that Egypt is building, but also the anti-Semitic sounds you hear very strongly from Egypt. You know that the main government newspaper wrote a big article that Hitler was right, and he predicted how bad the Jews will be in Israel, and that's why he has to have support. And I believe neither Israel nor the world is properly reacting to this anti-Semitic attitude in Egypt.
It's believed that the Shas party, if they're paid X amount of dollars, they're interested in getting money internally for their school systems, their yeshivas, whatever they do to bring their people together, and they would be they're movable on this peace process business. Is that a correct statement?
Not exactly, because, first of all, that they want money for the voters. This is how democracies do work, also for Shas people, not only for the left wing. But on political issues, they have to take into account the attitude of the voters. And their voters are very much close to our opinions in Herut, or at least Likud.
Well, last time they had about, how many seats do they have, Shas?
17.
And you think in a new election they would get that many?
They will have less, and the strongest guy in this party is still Aryeh Deri, and much depends on his attitude after he gets out from the jail period he's serving.
Israeli Arabs. Azmi Bashara, a member of the Knesset, spoke yesterday to a memorial service in Syria. And I believe that he inspired or asked for an inspiration to fight Israel. Is that correct or incorrect? I don't want to misstate him.
Look, first of all, there is no such a term, Israeli Arabs. This is a term we invented in the past. It doesn't exist. There are Palestinians who live who are Israeli citizens, who identify, most of them, 90, 95, 98% of them, totally identify themselves with the Palestinians. They're anti-Israel. Their anthem is a Palestinian anthem and not a tikva. The flag that they really identify themselves with is a Palestinian flag and not the Israeli flag. This is a problem, once again, nobody is addressing. They put it under the carpet. Now it's coming out.
That's a crucial question. Do you think someone should be able to sit in the Knesset, be elected to serve in the Knesset, not salute the Israeli flag and not to sing its national anthem?
No normal country, no democracy in the world which I know wouldn't allow people who are against the country,
I would agree with
who
that.
identify themselves with the enemies of their countries, to serve in the Knesset. But the problem is a bigger one, because if you throw out the members of Knesset, others will come instead of them, representing the same population with the same opinions. Many Israelis cheat themselves. They say, look, the members of Knesset are very extreme, the population is very good, and you just send away the members of Knesset and everything will be okay. It's not true. They are really representing their population. So we have a bigger problem that should be addressed to before we have a permanent agreement. What is the future of the Israeli Arabs, which no doubt Arafat plans to use them as an irredentic force to destroy Israel from inside. He wants to make it faster, so also wants to bring into smaller Israel, not the Palestinian part, the Israeli part, the Jewish part, another 5 million refugees. And this is the time bomb, and this is why Barak couldn't make an agreement with him. Because he realized that even if he gives him most of the territories and part of Jerusalem and part of the holy places, then Arafat came with his new demand, or old new demand, the right of return, swamping Israel with 5 million Palestinians, which is actually the destruction of the state of Israel. And now the Israeli Arabs are actually by soul a part of the Palestinian people.
So how do you fight the demographic problem in the state of Israel? Aren't there scenarios which show that demographically the Israeli Arab, paraphrase Palestinians under your term, will ultimately have a huge position in this country from population calculations?
First of all, I believe in Aliyah. And we should bring Aliyah. As we had the immigration from Russia, which was a big surprise. We had immigration from Ethiopia. Maybe one day we will have more immigration from France, even from the United States. And on the other hand, people who live in Israel but feel that they don't identify themselves with Israel, they are not part of the Israeli Jewish nation, and they are not ready to be a loyal part of this population, it's their choice. It's their choice. Will have a possibility to live wherever they want, but to vote in a parliament in Gaza, for example, which is representing their desires and their national aspirations. The idea in Palestine was always, I don't speak if the border now is the Jordan River or somewhere else, the idea was always, which the whole world was supporting, having one state which will express the national desires of the Palestinian Arabs, and the other one that will be a Jewish state. And so if an Arab who lives in Israel today cannot feel himself loyal to a Jewish state, so he can stay where he wants, but he will be part of the Arab state because this is his choice.
So in other words, he could live in Israel, but he'd be a citizen of Palestine or Jordan or whatever it is and vote there.
Exactly, this is the only solution.
There's a lot of buzz in this town, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, about partition, about removing a few settlements now and trying to put up sort of like a Berlin Wall. What's your position on that?
It is a fantasy. It cannot exist. You never put a wall against Israeli Arabs, who are, as we said before, Israeli Palestinians, who some of them are already participating in terrorist acts. I don't see any justification why a village called Jisr Zarqa, on the road from Haifa to Tel Aviv, from which stones were thrown at Jewish cars in the heart of Israel, and even one Israeli citizen was killed from a stone, can stay, and the Jewish settlement, who never did anything to the Arab neighbors, must be removed. Why? We take as example that Arabs can live in Tel Aviv, and Arabs can live in Haifa, and Arabs can live in the Galilee, and Jews cannot live in Judea or Samaria. This is a racist attitude. Why should we say that the holiest places for the Jewish people would be Judenrein, free of Jews? If any country, Britain or the States or Russia, would declare a certain area closed for the settlement of Jewish people, all the world would have been protesting. So out of all places, we want to make the holiest cities of Hebron and Jericho places that are forbidden for Jews to live there. This is the kind of peace that the world is speaking about.
If I mention the name Yossi Beilin to you, what happens?
He's a very intelligent young guy, which I happen to like because he was one of the serious Israeli politicians, but he made a mistake in Oslo and later on cheated the public, and he should carry responsibility for it. And I believe that he should be honest enough to decide by himself to go home and close himself and never enter politics again.
Is he? He's not in the Knesset now, right? He's out.
He's not in the Knesset, but he's still doing politics. He's still trying to stick to his mistake and making it even worse. I was very much disappointed when Yossi Beilin went to Arafat one day after the terrible murder in Tkoa where 2 young Israeli kids were slaughtered until the stage that you couldn't recognize them because all the face was distorted. You had to have the teeth sample in order to recognize them. And Arafat was 1 day later sitting with Arafat, smiling with him and giving him advice how to promote his new compromise programs. I believe we shouldn't do it. And personally, when Tibi or Bashara
Tibi's a member of Knesset.
Tibi and Bashar, the Arab members of Knesset, do what they do. So they're members of Knesset, and according to the law, they cannot support our enemy. This is called in every normal country treason. But when Yossi is going to meet Arafat, 1 day after such a terrible murder, and has a photo opportunity as he's smiling with him together, this is something that hurts me more, because if Arafat today is acting, you know, like in his press and his propaganda and his school books, like the Nazis, and with a goal like the Nazis, actually to destroy this Jewish place, and his imams and his clergymen are speaking in very obvious terms of destroying Israel. So what can you say about a Jew who is going and smiling and sitting with him? I don't want to use the word again.
All right. What, under your context of thought, Gaza, should that be part of what? Who should Gaza belong to? Let's assume that you're right. The Oslo Agreement is wrong. It was done wrong, and it's a mess. What do you do with the territories that you've already ceded to the Palestinians? What happens?
First of all, when Oslo agreements gave Gaza, which is populated by Arabs mostly, so when I spoke against it, I say, now you're very happy that you got rid of Gaza. Right. Tomorrow you will get Katyushas in Ashkelon. So we still don't get Katyushas, only mortar, but we'll get Katyushas as well. Now, I believe that the sovereignty should be Israeli, at least for the foreseeable future. But of course, I want self-rule for the people. Well,
Michael, that means,
for the people who live there.
That means the Israeli army would have to go in and take it back.
I believe, if you examine the Oslo agreements,
they breached it.
No, not only they breached it, basically, because in the Oslo agreements there was only one important Arab commitment, and this is the one: not use violence anymore, not use terror. In return, they got anything: the land and the guns and the
police
people.
Force and army, everything.
When they broke it, so they cannot enjoy the benefits of this agreement. So we must take from them. We must take the land. We must confiscate the arms that they are holding illegally. We must destroy the factories which are producing the mortars and the bombs and the bullets. And we must take the people the terrorists we brought from Tunis, and send them away. And Arafat shouldn't be here.
You're a lawyer. Would you call that a war?
The Israeli government will declare the Oslo Agreement void. We have the right to declare the Oslo Agreement void according to international law. And actually, it's not a real war. We have to enter. We have to make a curfew. We have to confiscate the guns, which, by the way, we have right to do also according to the Oslo agreements. It mustn't be war. It mustn't be war. It can be relatively not very complicated. I believe we have full justification for it. And if we don't do it, we go into a war of attrition that will continue and continue, and Israelis will die and Arabs will die from the Palestinian side, and in the end of the day, we will have to do it anyway.
So you think they should do it sooner than later?
I believe after the terror act in the Dolphinarium, we had a golden opportunity, and Sharon missed it.
All right, we got to cut for a break. We'll come right back with Michael Kleiner, who is highly intelligent. He's a member of Knesset. He's a one-man party now called Herut Party, and we think that you should be exposed to his views, and we're giving them to you. We'll be right back.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high. To have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Now get the book the hit movie was based on, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the backdoor channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the Mystery of the Kaddish. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Available now over iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play. Leon Charney's cantorial CD and Disco Lam. Listen as Charney movingly sings El Moleh Rachamim and Charney's amazing rendition of a disco remix of Adon Olam, all sung in the incredible and individual Charney style. Also listen to the CDs on Rhapsody. Download Leon Charney's cantorial songs and Disco Lam, the disco remix of Adon Olam on Amazon, iTunes, and Google Play. Or listen in on Rhapsody. All available now.
We're back. We're talking with Michael Kleiner, who is a member of Knesset in the Knesset of Jerusalem, Israel. And he is a member of the Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee, which is the elite committee in the Knesset. So he knows of what he speaks because he's informed, and they gain all the intelligence and security matters for the state of Israel. Is the general population able to withstand this terroristic pressure, Michael?
If they are supplied with hope and a goal, and knowing what we are intending to do and what we are intending to achieve, the answer is yes. We proved it in the past. We had some difficult war in this country, and you know what gives us a strength? The knowledge that we have no choice.
All right. Ariel Sharon, I was near the Dolphinarium when this poor, terrible tragedy happened. And I saw it. I saw the whole scene. I was at the Hilton Hotel in Tel Aviv. Many people thought that Fuad, your defense minister, and Ariel Sharon, your prime minister, who cannot be a defense minister, right? Is by law, hasn't he, because of Sabra Shatila, he's not allowed to be a defense minister? Am I correct?
No, it was then. I don't think it applies now.
I think it does. All right, doesn't matter. I'm not in the Knesset. Anyway, irrelevant. We thought there'd be a terrific strike, but he came back with a policy of restraint. Are you for that policy?
If it will end up with a terrific strike, yes.
And suppose it ends up with negotiating. We have George Tenet here now, and he's the head of the CIA. We have Burns, who's now sort of the Middle East negotiator, the Assistant Secretary of State for the United States. Everybody's trying to bring you two together. That's called the Palestinians and the Israelis. That's not basically what you like, is it?
My idea was not to waste the opportunity after the Dolphinarium. And it's not only an opportunity, it is a legitimate desire of the people to end this farce. And since October war started, and I call it the Oslo War in a way, I always said that the moment Arafat broke his commitment not to use violence, we should make sure he will not be there. So it was my position all the time. Sharon, I believe, if he sticks to his principles, not to negotiate under a fire, and stopping totally all Palestinian violence for several weeks as a precondition to any other negotiations, probably it will not happen properly. the Americans and the Europeans will get more evidence to the fact that Arafat is a terrorist, and there's no use to make agreements with him because he will break them again and again, as he did in Jordan in the 70s, as he did in Lebanon in the 80s.
Are you worried about, if you take that operation forward, are you worried about the relationship or what the other Arab countries will do, like Egypt and Jordan and Syria? Does that bother you?
Of course. I believe they have no interest to join into a war. Maybe Egypt has some strategic dreams, but Egypt knows also the price, and Syria knows the price of entering a war. And I believe if an Israeli action will be swift enough and quick enough and will get the results of getting rid of Arafat and his terrorists, there will be no regional war. If this war of attrition, which is taking place now, will continue and be complicated and will deteriorate, this may cause a regional war, because then it will be more costly, and this continuation of conflict is also very bad for Jordan and Egypt. Ending it quickly is good for all involved partners.
All right, I was here during the scudding of Israel, the Gulf War, and we filmed, and we went through the whole thing. 22 days I was here. What's your position, or what do you think the position of Iran and Iraq would be in the event you guys sought to de-enforce the Oslo Agreement? I'm sure you talk about it all the time.
Once again, if it is swift, so they will have nothing to do, Iran and Iraq. If it will be a geschleppte Kranke, as they say in Yiddish,
I have to explain that to my audience. Not everybody's Jewish. It means a deteriorating illness.
Yes, so this will cause a dynamic of more and more circles being involved in this conflict.
And you feel that this is still the best thing that Israel can do to protect itself. That's your position.
Yeah, look, if you have a sickness, if you have something rotten, so you have to cut it quickly and not let it spread.
You're not by nature a religious person, are you?
No.
You are a secularist. Is that a fair statement?
I would say traditional, because in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur,
you say Kiddush with a cup.
I go to a synagogue,
right.
But I'm not religious.
Do you believe in a greater Israel?
I believe that it's a right of the Jewish people to have Eretz Israel. By the way, most of Israelis know that this is our holy land. There was no other sovereignty here for 2,000 years after we were thrown out of our country. And we came back to the only place where the Jewish people, after the terrible Holocaust, can establish the one and only Jewish state. There are 21 Arab countries, land more than half Europe, a lot of sovereignties, a lot of ways to express a culture, tradition. For us, it is the only small way, the only small place on earth which belongs to us and not to nobody else.
There are some European countries that are trying to establish sort of an international force here. You're aware of that, obviously. Your opinion on that?
We are against it. We saw what use UN forces had preventing the war in '67 with Egypt and in Lebanon, and God forbid one UN or European soldier or observer be injured, and they will put it also on us and blame the Jews as they used to do.
We're out of time. Michael, it's a pleasure. I can say this about you. You're consistent, you're an ideologue, and you're a Democrat. And we wish everybody in this country a lot of luck, and we hope that somehow with your Talmudic mind you'll be able to conceive a way maybe you don't really have to go to war.
We all hope that we will have no more war.